Welcome. I'm Melva Persico. Come with me, meet new people, and share their experiences in this episode of Our Culture to the World. My guest today is Kim Oppong. Kim, please introduce yourself to our guests.
Hello, good afternoon. Good morning. It's afternoon here because we're 5 hours ahead of you. My name is Kim Oppong, and I'm from Georgetown, Guyana. I grew up in a small, predominantly Black village in Greater Georgetown known as Agricola. I went to school there. My primary education was attained there. And my secondary education, I went on to St. Rose's High School. My tertiary education consists of a certificate in teaching, which I attained from Government Teachers Training College. And I later went on to do a Bachelor of Arts degree in history at the University of Guyana. I furthered my education a little later, attaining a Master of Arts degree while I was living in the Bahamas and working as a teacher. I got married there in 1993, and we had a son who is now pursuing his first degree in the United States of America.
Yes. So, Kim, where are you now? You mentioned that you lived in the Bahamas after you left Guyana, but I know you're not there. So tell us, first of all, where are you actually living right now?
I'm living in Ghana in a place called Tema. It's a town not far away from Accra, the capital. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't think it's a town. It's so big. I keep saying all the time that it's huge. The population is huge. So it's like a city in itself.
Okay. And what were your motivations for moving away from Guyana, for living abroad?
Okay. It was solely economical. I had no intentions of leaving home. And after finishing my degree in 1986, I realized that the economic situation there was becoming very dire. And in order to be able to cope, I realized I would have to migrate. In addition to that, the dollar had devalued, and I don't know if you remember, it had gone 10 for 1 in 1988. And so I realized that it would be difficult to pay a mortgage. I was building at the time. It would be difficult to pay a mortgage if I was to remain in Guyana as a teacher. So after responding to a recruitment notice for a job in the Bahamas to work with the Anglicans, I was accepted. And later that year, I resettled there.
Okay. Yes, but now you, like I said, you were living in Bahamas and you lived there for quite a while. Was there anything that, when you got there as a foreigner, even though somebody from the Caribbean, but then you were from a different space in the Caribbean, you were from Guyana, were there any stereotypes about Guyana or Guyanese culture that you were able to dispel while, among the Bahamians you interacted with?
Okay. I'm not sure much about the dispelling. I may have tried to explain and correct, but I am not sure if I succeeded. But there are, when I got there in 88, many Bahamians didn't know much about Guyana. And for our part, we didn't know much about the Bahamas either. But anyway, if you spoke to them, if you spoke to the normal, the man in the street, and you told them that you were from Guyana, most likely they wouldn't have heard of it, or they would think, oh, that must be in Africa.
Really?
Because Guyana, yes, Guyana, and they mix up Guyana with Ghana, you know? So, you know, you can correct them, but it occurred so often that, and it is not only limited to the Bahamas.
Right.
You know, a lot of people you talk to, they mix up the two countries all the time. You know, the
Yes,
names are
yes.
so close.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are. So, another thing I learned, not from many of them, I learned that they thought that we went to school in trees.
Oh, really?
So, right, because of the, you know, stereotype. Stereotype. Yes,
Wow.
I heard it. I heard it. Yes, so that that is one of the things that I found, you know, when I got there.
Were there any other things that you found noticeably different in the Bahamas?
When I arrived in the Bahamas in 1988, it seemed to me that the people were caught in the intersection between traditional and modern culture. What do I mean by that? Being in close proximity to the States gave them easier access to modern amenities. They traveled to Florida to shop often, and many Bahamians who traveled to shop for school or just as tourists usually returned, unlike most Guyanese who traveled to the States and rarely returned. Though they were materially better off, had better roads, wore more fashionable clothes, and drove more modern cars, etc., they seemed more conservative in their outlook. From my perspective, they were fiercely religious, Southern Baptist style, and still played Bob Marley music like it was the 70s and they had just discovered it. Even their political persuasion seemed to align with the conservatives in America. Their history and cultural link with the Southern American states could be attributed to that, as most of their ancestors came from there. Almost everything was different from what I was used to. Their food, their dress style was different. And with tourism booming, their standard of living was better. Even their religious practices in the same denomination was different. And they saw us as different too.
Um, on the Bahamas part now, you know, a lot of people all over the world see the Bahamas as paradise, and it's very picturesque, very pretty. It's just like you see it. Some of the islands are just like you see it in the postcards.
Mm.
But for us living there, it's just a normal home, you know, a place we lived there for over 30 years. And it was very peaceful, and we live a very comfortable existence there.
Right. Now, yeah, you mentioned, having to try to explain to people about Guyana and so on. But were they, and we think, okay, Caribbean, Bahamas is a part of the Caribbean, Guyana is a part of the English-speaking Caribbean as well. What were some things that may have been similar or different from Guyana among Bahamians or in life in the Bahamas in general?
Okay, well, to begin with, though the Bahamas was colonized by the British, just like Guyana, there are some differences. There are many differences. Their history is different. And you know, what they say, your history determines your worldview. They were colonized very early by the British in 1648. But at the very beginning, the population was very small. For over 100 years, the population barely grew. It was occupied mainly by pirates who used the Bahamas as their hideout. pirates and buccaneers who used the Bahamas as their hideout. And it wasn't until 1783, following the American War of Independence, that we saw an increase in their population. The loyalists, those people who remain loyal to Britain, came across the Bahamas with their slaves in an effort to escape persecution when America became independent. And they started planting cotton, all right? They started cotton plantations, but it didn't thrive beyond 5 years. And so a lot of them went back to America, leaving their slaves. And the slaves and those who remained were actually the ancestors of the Bahamians today. Okay. So the Bahamas is remains a predominantly Black country. Okay. They don't have very much in common with us in terms of indentureship, because they didn't have much of a plantation system. So therefore, when emancipation came around and slavery ended, they didn't need indentured servants. And it's only, however, migration consisted mainly of Haitians migrating there, and Turks and Caicos. And they have a few, small number that came from Greece and Syria and China, of course. Yeah. Now, Guyana, on the other hand, had a longer history with plantation slavery, which kind of shaped our culture.
Yes.
In different ways. For example, Creole's language was influenced by the African language, and even though there are only a smattering of African words, the syntax which we find often in Creole's phrases are closely linked to the Akan tree, which is the Ghanaian tribe here, the Akan manner of speaking. Okay, for example, I'm going to make reference to the picture at the back, the painting at the back. It's called a Sankofa. All right, literally means go back and get, or return to your roots. That is it's a way of saying, it's very similar to the way the Akan people, and it's closely related, the Akan people speak, and we find it closely similar to a lot of our Creolese phrases. Okay? There are so many other things that are similar, or that we sort of inherited from our African ancestors. The food, for example, okay? Fufu, which I saw my grandmother preparing every Sunday with the soup. I don't know if you remember, or if you had.
Yes, we use the plantain fufu, yes.
Okay, the fufu and the konki, which is no doubt it's no doubt the corrupted word for their dish, known as kenke, are both staples in Ghana.
Right. So you've actually taken us from the Bahamas to Ghana.
Right. Okay. Why I brought you to Ghana was to show you that we in Guyana had a lot in common with our African ancestors because of our long history
Right.
of plantation slavery.
Mhm.
All right, as opposed to the Bahamas that only had a very short history, very few number of years where they had slavery. Okay.
Right. Right.
Uh-huh. And our national hero, celebrated national hero, coffee. Coffee was believed to have been transported from Ghana. In fact, the word coffee is possibly the name Kofi, which is the boy child born on Friday. And he was a slave. He was a slave who, you know, started a rebellion and was almost successful. It lasted for about 10 months. But unfortunately, the Dutch, our colonizers at the time, received reinforcements, and in addition to betrayal from within, the rebellion was put down. So, you know, we have those similarities with Ghana. Now, in terms of the similarities with the Bahamas, okay? In terms of the similarities with the Bahamas, because what I pointed out mainly was how the Bahamas and Guyana history is sort of different.
Right.
But in terms of the similarities with the Bahamas, the one most important thing that comes to mind is music. You know, our ancestors were very musically inclined, and therefore the Africans brought that love of music and dance from Africa, and her descendants developed that love for music also. So out of the Bahamas evolved Junkanoo. Junkanoo is a cultural festival which they celebrate at Christmas time. It originated during slavery when the slaves wanted to express jubilation at Christmas time. And when emancipation came about, it evolved into a much organized parade with music and dance and costumes, street parade with music and dance and costumes at Christmas time mainly. It's become synonymous with the Bahamian culture, you know. It's very organized, almost on par with Trinidad's Carnival, and very, you know, very exciting. And it's also used to attract tourists to the country. Yes, it's very similar well, it evolved in the very same way as our masquerade did.
I was wondering about that, the masquerade.
Yes, yes, it evolved in the very same way. And I found out that they do it right here in masquerade, very similar masquerade in Ghana. I discovered that just last year, that they did a masquerade in Ghana. I don't know the Ghanaian word for it, but they do it, and it looks very much like Guyanese masquerade. Okay. So, you know, that shows the similarity between us, the Bahamas, Ghana.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, so we see all these connections, indeed. So now you live in Ghana. I am wondering about your first encounters with Ghanaian culture, and, you know, later you're going to talk some more about that. But so what was your first encounter with Ghanaian culture like?
Okay, well, right off the bat, soon as I got there, I met my husband in less than 2 months.
After to the Bahamas?
As soon as I got to the Bahamas in October. And we started dating right away. And 4 years later, we were married. I didn't come to to Ghana until 99. I spent a few years studying, and then in 99, when I was finished, I came to Ghana for the first time. Now, you know, they say that when you land in Africa, you get this feeling, you know, this surreal feeling.
Of home, of a return.
Yes, it is exactly. I was sending postcards to my friends. I've repatriated all the time, and they were having fun at my expense, you know. So when we got here, we came in time to coincide with the Pan-African Festival. It used to be held biennially. They haven't done it for a number of years now, but it used to be held biennially in the 90s. I'm not sure how often they do it now. It's a 3-day festival whereby they had, first of all, they had a Durbar of chiefs. All right, I don't know if you know of the Durbars. All right,
you got to tell me about
parade of chiefs. It's a parade of chiefs. It was so interesting. It's a parade of the chiefs from all across the country. Okay. And I only read about it in history books, but that was my first experience being there and witnessing it. And we went to Cape Coast. It was held in Cape Coast. Cape Coast is where the first slave garrison was built, in a place called Elmina.
Yeah, I've heard of Elmina, yes.
Elmina. That we visited the two forts, Elmina and Cape. There are many in Ghana, but those two were the major ones, Elmina and Cape Coast. That was a very haunting experience for me, very haunting. When you stand by the door of no return, the door of no return, that was haunting. Okay, there were some young, when I came here, I had been teaching slavery for a number of years. So I was kind of used to dealing with the topic, but there were some young girls around me who were crying bitterly, you know. So anyway, the Pan-African Festival attracts many from the diaspora and other places in Africa as well. And it was a showcase of African culture in general. They had a lot of cultural events. They had a lot of sightseeing and so on. And but the Durbar was the highlight of it all, you know. We also visited Kumasi, that's a second city, and it's a capital of the Ashanti tribe. The Ashanti is the largest tribe here in Ghana. And we visited the palace, the palace of the Ashanti king, and where we viewed the golden stool, which is considered the soul of the Ashanti people. And I also visited a town called Akosambo, where the hydroelectric project, which happens to the hydroelectric dam, which happens to be the largest in West Africa, is located. So I loved the place so much that I vowed I will return to Ghana to live. That was my last stop, Akosambo, and I vowed there and then that I'll return to Ghana to live. So that was very very exhilarating for me, the trip. Yes.
I'll get there one day soon. Anyway, we talk about that afterwards. So, Kim, in your interactions with people who really don't know anything about Ghana or West Africa, was there any stereotype that they may have had that now because you married a Ghanaian and you've lived in the country, that you can actually prove wrong or have been able to prove wrong?
Oh, okay, but the popular one that Africa is Africans are starving all over. And that is far from the truth in Africa. That is in Ghana here. That's far from the truth. Agriculture happens to be, 54% of the GDP. Approximately 90% of the country's needs are supplied right here, local farmers. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a holiday, Farmers' Day, and where a lot of farmers were given awards. All right, so it's far from the truth. Even in the height of the COVID, and you go to the supermarket, the shelves were stocked moderately with goods. So I could say that is so untrue. When I go to parties, I don't see people rushing to pack doggy bags like they do in our part of, in other parts of the world. Mm-hmm. So they go there to have a good time, dance and have a good time. So that is one stereotype that I can say is certainly not true.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and that's good, because and a lot of it has to do with the media. They just show one view, one part, and then people go away feeling that this is the reality of the entire continent. As I'm going to ask you also something that I asked before about the Bahamas, because I'm sure you mentioned some of the similarities you found, things like the kanki and the fufu in terms of food and stuff, and the language, how our Creole language has been influenced by African languages, like I think you said the Akan tree.
The Akan, right?
Yeah. So but what
the Akan are right, the Akan is a group name for a number of tribes, Ashanti and Fante being two of them.
Okay. So what are some other cultural aspects of life in Ghana that maybe that you would like to share, that maybe have impacted on you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the African proverbs. There are so many African proverbs that have so much spiritual meaning. Okay, one comes to mind, the one that most people know about. It takes a village to raise a child. Hillary Clinton would popularize that one with her bestseller. The same can be said for burying their dead. When a person dies in this culture, everyone comes together to bury that person. Okay, it was so refreshing and eye-opening when I came with my husband a few years ago when his sister died. The families, the family members, the friends, the villagers, mourners far and wide came and made monetary contribution. They took pride in stepping forward. They have it's a 3-day ceremony. Their funerals are 3-day, can take place 3 days. And the mourners step up in a ceremony set aside for when they would make their contribution, and even to give gifts, to, sometimes a tray of eggs, whatever they could, but rich and poor step forward to help bury the dead. And they don't rush the bury. They make sure everything and everyone is in place. And before they have the funeral, and it's done in their rich tradition. So they do this just according to the traditional rites. You have the dead being brought in on maybe Friday. If it's to be done on the weekend, the dead is brought in and the person lies in state. On Saturday, they have the funeral and the burial, and then they have the this occasion where they make the monetary contribution. And then on Sunday, they go to church, if the person is a Christian, you know. So I found that really refreshing because, in Guyana, we don't do that.
Right. And then the burden of the funeral is on the family.
Precisely. Precisely. Right. So that to me was eye-opening. I found that very eye-opening. And then the diligence of the people, the diligence of the people. We have all kinds of stereotypes, which I don't want to get into, so many of them. But when you wake up, when you get out there, let's say you get out there at 6 o'clock. I mean, the population is huge. There are about over 30 million. And the population is huge. But people are, are always busy getting about doing their whatever their job is. The traffic is always busy with people hustling and bustling to and fro, whether it's to work in an office or to simply hawk goods, small or large, in the street, bobbing between traffic. You may have seen that, bobbing between traffic dangerously, but they're doing it, they're going about their job very diligently.
Yes.
So, yes. So that I found, very refreshing.
So much of their tradition and culture is still present today. However, more and more, there is a noticeable blending of the tradition with an infusion of modern Western trends in the way they dress, their music, and even their dishes. And it is seen even more prevalent in their worship. There is an explosion of Western Christian influences over the years, with an alarming increase of mega churches that advertise everywhere, even along the side of the roads, like regular businesses.
So did you have any opportunities now that you're in Ghana to share any information or aspects of Guyanese life and culture with the people that you interact with there?
Not much, because as soon as we got here, COVID struck. So, you can't go about much. But we do meet people on rare occasions from time to time, people of different cultures, Ghanaians and people of different culture. And sometimes we chat and so on. They want to know, they too don't, a lot of them don't know where Guyana is. So you got to explain to them where it is. You rarely come across someone who actually knows where Guyana is. So it's, when you talk to them, I would try to explain to them a little of our culture and so on.
Yes.
Yes.
Hopefully we get on the map soon with oil and all of that.
I am hoping for that. Yes, because we're usually only associated with, for the few who know, Jim Jones.
Yes, which as one of my early guests said, she lives in the US. She says she usually reminds them that was an American tragedy on Guyanese soil. So Kim, you have lived outside of Guyana for over 30 years in the Bahamas and then now in Ghana. But I know you go home to visit. How is it when you go back to Guyana to visit? Do you feel anything strange? Is it hard to kind of readjust to life in Guyana when you go back?
So for me, Guyana is home. The other places I lived in are also home, but Guyana is where I was born. And, you know, I read somewhere where they said, home is the place where when you return, they have to let you in. So I have no problem going home.
I know. I feel this. I feel the same way, you know, like for some people it's difficult, but it's nice that it's easy for you. So what lessons have you learned from living abroad?
The main thing I learned is that you have to be careful what you say. You know, you have to be careful what you say. You always have to be sort of not on your guard. You know, you got to be very careful what you say, because you come into a different culture and they may see it, you see, whatever you say, they may see it as, you know, it might be misconstrued.
Yes.
You know? So you have to be careful with what you say. That might be probably my main, you know.
Yes, and that's a big lesson, and some of us have learned it the hard way. But eventually I think we get it right. And I remember somebody saying, you know, sometimes people think, oh, you're so quiet, but one of my previous guests said, you learn to be quiet. You learn to listen and sometimes not say, because you sometimes what we could just say freely at home and people would understand, people will not understand in another culture. Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to add one other thing. You know, recently, you know, the governments have been sort of making overtures. Guyana government and the Ghana government.
That's big in the news.
Yes, that's the big thing now. And very recently, I don't even know when it was when it came into place, but very recently they, you know, it became possible for Guyanese to come to Ghana without having to get a visa. A lot of people are not aware of it, but we had a visitor recently, actually it's my sister, and she was so excited to find that she could come to Ghana without having to go in and get a visa. So it makes traveling even easier now.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be great. If more Guyanese would come to Ghana, forget about the stereotypes. They're just stereotypes. Come and have a good time.
Exactly. I tell you, I'll tell you about my trip afterwards. It's coming up. It's coming up.
Okay.
So, as we wrap up, Kim, what are your impressions about peoples and cultures in general from your experiences and interactions living abroad?
I don't regret leaving home to live abroad, because life was really getting tough in especially, you know, it was the 80s.
The 80s, yes.
Life was getting tough. So I don't really regret coming abroad. I lived comfortably in the Bahamas, and I'm doing the same thing here in Ghana. You know, we have no major, you know, issues. Day-to-day life is comfortable.
And then, as I say, life is what you make it. Just you live, regardless of where you live, you could just do your best to enjoy life. And that's obviously what you're doing. So I would like to say thank you so much to you, Kim, our guest today, Kim Oppong. She's Guyanese and she has lived in the Bahamas and now she lives in Ghana. Thank you so much, Kim, for spending time with us today, for sharing your experiences. And I'd like to thank you, the guests, for watching, and come again. We're going to meet new people and share their experiences in our next episode of Our Culture to the World. Thank you, Kim. Bye.
Bye. You're welcome.